What we're looking at, Ralph, I'll tell you, this is the back room of Ralph's house, and I'm a bit behind with it. Actually, I'm about 2 or 3 years behind it, but I want to get this room finished because my son's now at uni, and it would be really good if he'd got a room that he could work in, so he doesn't have to work in his bedroom all the time. You know what it is with yous. Between the two of us this week, we're going to strip all this paper off and off the ceiling. These cables, this is the thing when you come to rewire houses, you've got to do the downstairs while you're doing the upstairs, because otherwise, how do you get at it once you've got carpet down above? So I ran all these round a long time ago, and at one point this was going to be a kitchen. I was thinking of maybe knocking that wall out, but I don't know, you reduce the number of rooms, and my son and I have found that the kitchen, small as it is, works all right for us. You know, we don't have 6 to 7 people in it, so it's fine. These brackets up here, these are the type where you slot, you know, your shelf brackets in. My dad put all these up because originally this room was full of, well, he had a piano here and it was all sheet music. In fact, if you go back to some of the early Ralph's house, you'll see it, and the piano. But we decided this rail can actually come off. I'm keeping it in the front room because I quite like it in the front room. Keep it as it is. But that rail's coming off, which means it'll leave big holes because the way they fasten them, they made holes in the brickwork, tapped in a piece of wood and then nailed to that. That's how they put them up. That's how they put them up so quickly. So, and I have done it in other rooms in the house, so I know what I'm up against there. But we need it flat because our plan is to really shelve it from ceiling to floor all the way down, because it's going to be a bit of a craft, do it, repair it type room. And in the sort of shorter term we'll both use it, but I suppose in the longer term it'll be all my sons, or both sons, if my eldest one decides that life isn't going his way and rents are too high or whatever. He could theoretically come and move here if he wanted to in the future. That's my plan with this house, and my youngest knows this. I said, I don't want you in a situation when you're arguing about splitting the house so you can each get half the money. Don't do that. The best thing you can do is to keep this house going, even if you let it, whatever you're going to do, but keep it going, because rents are astronomically high, as we all know. Mortgages are still running at an all-time high with all the interest rates and everything else. But this house is paid for. So as long as you're paying the gas, the water and the electric, which, although they're expensive, they're nothing compared to mortgages or rents, it would always mean that they've got a roof over their head. So that is my thinking on it, because ultimately this house came from my father, and more importantly my sister, because she gave up her half in it, because I think they were worried about my future, and to be honest they were quite right. I really hadn't seen what was coming, and there isn't a day go by when I don't think, wow, you know, I'm living in my own house. So that's part of the reason why we haven't finished the downstairs, because my son and I were in a very small room before and we got used to it, you see. So it's a novelty having so many rooms in the house. But he said over the last couple of months, can't we start on that room, Dad? So I said, yep, we can, but you'll have to help me with it because we've got to get all this paper off, and we've got to put sockets in at the right height, that sort of stuff. So we think probably, because I've got, it's not in this room actually, but I've got an old oak desk that somebody, well, it's not old, but it's an oak desk that somebody gave me, slightly scratched, but that's all right. We just want a good work area. If you've got to work on a large piece of work, you need a big table to work on, so I'm going to put one of those in. We're thinking putting a small sink in that corner so you could wash, brush it, possibly, I don't know, it might be just as easy to go in the kitchen, but we'll see. These windows, I'm not going to show you, they're awful. 1930s ones, they really want changing for UPVC, but we can't afford that at this particular time. This is a vinyl plotter, which once we start in this room I should put a dust sheet on that, otherwise it'll get filthy. I've also got this is the back of the door. You can see I've started. I mentioned this before, but during the 1950s, 60s, before Mike Smith became a big thing in DIY, that would have been the 70s, there was a guy called Barry Bucknell. Anybody remember him? And he was all for tacking on hardboard to these doors to modernise them. Well, I've pulled them off and we've got back to the door, and I'm filling up all these holes, and then we'll flat it smooth and then we'll get them painted. I've already done, well, if I show you the other side, I've already done that side. That one's all done, came out all right. And I've also got 2 extra spare doors. I was going to change these for sort of modern posh ones, but I actually sold them last week. I wasn't keen on them to start with, and it was somebody else's suggestion that I fit them. I don't know why anybody wants to fit lightweight paper doors in a house when you've got wooden ones that at least provide some degree of a fire break. So we may possibly put 2 of those there, because there's double doors there. Like these houses, of course, they knock them right through, don't they? Like making it into one big room. But no, it'll work as 2 separate rooms, but that we can open them up into one if we want to. I think that's a better option. Well, we've got all the paper off. That's a start. Got the dehumidifier in here because, well, using a steamer, you know, the whole air gets moist, doesn't it? Plus, bits are about to fill up. This is where the dado rail ran. As I mentioned before, they used long nails into pieces of wood plugged between the bricks. But I think it'd be a good idea for tonight, even though I won't get the switch in tonight. I've just took this stuff, which was the original that went up the wall, but because I've got 3 light switch cables to come down, I've got to go for the wider stuff, so just wind that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bit of plaster on the back of this, and virtually, actually I could use no nails and then just fill up with plaster, I suppose. Yeah, it's not going to hurt, it'll hold it in place, won't it, while I get the plaster on. Yeah, that's a new one. So I shall uncoil that, feed that through this, stick it to the wall, and then we'll plaster it over. Well, I think that's gone in all right. The trunking is below the level of the wall, that's the main thing. And I've wedged it in at the top with a bit of wood just to make sure it's pushed back while this bit of plaster's setting. That's just enough to hold it, that and the no nails behind. I'll give it about an hour and then I'll squeeze some more in over the top. Just again, just below the level of the surface. You never want to be sanding plaster. I tell you, you'll be there all day. Because I'll just go with that with a light polyfiller just to get it smooth at the end. But I think, you know, we're making progress. Thursday night, which is kind of the end of my working week, because I only work Monday to Thursday at the moment anyway. We'll see how things change. I'm not sure about these double doors. I like them, nothing wrong with them there, but I think they might be better if they were glass doors, so at least you could let more light in on the downstairs. I will think about it at another point, I think, but otherwise we're getting there. I'm faced with this again. This is where, actually I can't blame my father wholly for this, because I think the original sockets in the 1930s were fitted on the skirting, but they used to be little round pin plugs, but I would bet any money that the hole behind that is much bigger, because to get that socket in he would have had to chase out more of that skirting board. I don't like this idea. Plus the fact, nowadays, nobody has sockets at that height. As you get older, you can't reach down and do it, can you? So they're all going to be at what I would call, well, I don't know what the term is for it, but anyway, they're sort of at that height, a height that any reasonable person could get at. And again, I'm faced with all these holes everywhere. It's like a gorgonzola cheese. My dad liked to drill in walls, you know. He did have shelving brackets up, and I will be putting some back, but I want to get the wall flat to start with. Plus, when you get a section like this works in my favour actually, because when you've got large areas like that have been filled in, they tend to help stabilise the wall, especially if you've got any loose bit. This is not bad, this wall, but occasionally you hear that, like a cardboard box. So the plaster is slightly detached from the wall. That's not a problem, you know. I'm not going to be banging the walls about. In an ideal world, what you do is chip off all the plaster and get the whole house replastered. But can you imagine the chaos and the mess that would ensue? This is that 1930s window. I'm sort of in two minds on this. What I really wanted was a UPVC window in here, but the wooden frame. Something my mum said years ago when she had double glazing salesman knock on a door, and she said, yeah, and how long are these windows guaranteed? And he said, oh, 25 years. And she said, well, how long do you think mine have been here? Which is a fair point, isn't it? Because in the 1930s, or at least pre-war, they used really seasoned timber. So it doesn't tend to go rotten. So I will look at the cost of UPVC, but if I do that, really I've got to cut down there, haven't I? Take this whole chunk out to make patio doors to fit, but I don't know if I need all that, whether it would be, because these have got quite a recess on them, and I can run a route around it if need be, but what I was thinking is, why can't I put double glazing panels in a wooden frame? I don't know, I have to tot up what it would cost for all the glass against putting in a whole door. It's not a pressing thing at the moment, and for the forthcoming winter, what I could do is just put a secondary glazing in, just so it's not so cold. But yeah, we are back into the Rolls house thing in a big way. What a difference a couple of days makes. I've been concentrating on really trying to lose this dado rail, because over the years, when this, apologies for the squeaking, it's these two doors. Over the years, from when they first put the dado rail in on the original plaster, this has been painted a couple of times, so there was a slight difference in the height. So, and I've got quite adept at doing this with polyfiller now. As you can see, I've completely obliterated it, got it smooth. What I'm going to do this weekend is concentrate on getting at least these two walls done and out of the way. Unfortunately, next weekend, look at those sockets down there. I need to put in a couple of sockets here, and you're thinking, well, why paint it if you're going to strip out sockets? Yeah, I get that, but I will really want to spend the time getting the walls flat, and when I've got them flat and painted them, that then shows up any imperfections, and I can just rub them flat again, and then I've got less to paint in the longer run. So that's why I do it that way. I decided this skirting can stay on this side of the room. I've removed it the other side, and no, it won't look odd, not the way the room's going to be done. And because we decided between my son and I that a vinyl floor would work much better in this room for practical reasons, much easier to clean. When we start putting the room together, we're going to try and avoid anything actually touching the floor. So where possible, things will be fixed to walls. There is a table going here, or it may go the opposite side of the room. I don't have it near me, but it's an oak table that somebody gave me. It's got a couple of scratches on it. We're not bothered, we just want a big work surface if we've got anything big to work on. And obviously it's got 4 legs, but what I'm going to do is screw a batten very firmly on that wall, and the table will sit on that batten. It'll be screwed to it, and there'll only be 2 legs in the front. So when we finally get the vinyl down, I'll be able to just unscrew the table, take the legs off, just take it out of the way while the floor's being laid. But otherwise I've got to start removing these. So what I'm thinking is make next weekend a noisy weekend. This weekend, just cosmetics and just gradually working my way around because tops of the windows are a bit rough, so I need to get all that sanded. The ceiling I have already painted, so that's a start. What I could do later on actually is start putting these spots in. I might do that this evening when it's quiet. I've got enough light to do that. But that's where we're at. So, you know, we've moved quite a bit. Those 3 cables are now in new trunking all the way from the top. When everything's painted, I shall go around with some, what do you call it, caulking. Yeah, acrylic caulking, just to tidy up that edge. I don't like coving, I have to say. I shan't mess with that, I don't think so anyway. The other thing I've got to do over this weekend is finished rubbing down, because these were all the holes where Barry Bucknell suggested we all tack hardboard to our doors. So I've got to fill up all those holes. Well, they are filled, there's a couple more to do. Get that all flat again, and then we can paint that. I should take the lock off. I don't mind a bit of dust on it, but I don't want paint on it. And around the door, you notice the architrave is missing. Well, the reason it's missing is because it was very insecure, I thought. So I've got some new architrave to go around there, which will go over that lip, tidy it up quite nicely. Not quite sure how I'm going to do it when I get here. I think what I'll do is I'll put a wooden strip all the way down there to that lock and to the floor, and then that'll tidy that up. So that's where we are this week. Thanks for watching, and there'll be more in the next Rail's house. I think it'll be sockets more than anything else, and getting this light switch in. Oh, I nipped a screw fix last night and got a 3-position light switch. Seems to be most rooms have got 3 lights in now, which I think is kind of cool, isn't it, really? Yeah, so thanks for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.